morning. We'd like to welcome everybody to our City Council meeting for today is April the 29th. Let me pull up the right meeting. I know that Mr. Heredia is on his way. He's just around the corner and has been texting us. He's stuck behind a train right now, so we'll see him walk in, I think, in a minute or two. I know Mr. Thompson is still recovering from surgery. I'm not sure if he's on our meeting virtually or not. Oh, there he is. You bet. Welcome back, Mr. Thompson. We hope you're feeling better. Looking forward to having your return.
Thank you, Mayor.
The first item on our agenda is to hear a presentation, discuss, and provide direction on the city's next steps in preparation of the 2021 council redistricting. Oops. Oh, no, never mind. I'm sorry. This is what happens when you use an electronic device. First, we're going to review our agenda for our Monday city council meeting. I know there's a few items on there that are pretty interesting that we probably will get the staff presentation on. Council, before we jump into a staff presentation, any questions on Monday night's agenda?
Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Luna.
These might be questions that Mr. Brady can answer, and I was 4A, 4D, and it has to do with the television systems and the cameras. 4A is the contract for services. Is that, are we hiring an engineer to look at our CCTV systems?
So, on 4A, 4A, I couldn't hear you, Councilmember.
Are we hiring just an engineer to maintain our systems?
On 4A?
Yeah.
No, 4A is parts and services to maintain our closed-circuit television system. Yeah. I'll let someone help me out with that, but I think that that's just a contract to help us manage it. I don't think it's a personnel. I think it's just,
Okay.
it's to be able to have, it's just a renewal of a state contract.
Okay.
That allows us to have replacement parts and services to keep that in repair.
Sorry, Chris. Yes, Mayor, Council Member, that is what 4A is.
If we hire an engineer that brings to look at the system, or do we have an internal engineer that does that, or just parts?
This one is parts and services, but I think I don't think the services extend to
We do have
engineering.
in-house. Are you
Yes,
saying we have
exactly.
personnel in-house who can
Exactly.
do those repairs?
Okay.
Services, yes.
I know Channel 11 has their own.
Yeah, no, but we have, I don't know if it's in, is it in Travis's department that helps maintain this?
Mayor, Councilmember Luna, we have people in police and IT that can do some of this.
Okay.
Sometimes we do go to outside services when we need it quicker. So sometimes we will contract with people to install things faster. But this is predominantly for the parts, and we may use some of the services money for other things, but it's generally just to install it when we can install it fast enough.
Okay. Now, as far as 4D, that's the deployment of camera system kits. I don't know if that's.
It's the police rapid deployable.
Oh, that's the...
This is for the large gathering sports events where they can move these around.
Is that the pole cams or is it the backpack?
No. Come on
Come on
up.
up, Chief. I think 4D is the backpack, correct?
Come on, Ed. You're used to the camera. You can handle it.
Sorry, Ed. I should have warned you, but I saw that and I was wondering about that.
Yeah, good morning, Mayor, Council. That is correct. 4D is actually a backpack which can be deployed for special events or large gatherings, protests. This is not the pole camera, the surveillance system that's actually in 4E, which is going to be designated for use in the parks, which is similar to the system that's set up in Pioneer Park today. There'll be the purchase of 4, which will be deployed in coordination with Parks and Rec at certain parks around the city.
And those are very, very overt, I guess the word would be.
They're made
overt.
to be seen by everybody in the park.
Yes, there's
Oh, okay.
signage, there's lights that will flash, so it's not just for deterrent for crime, but it's also visible for people that are in the park to see it, that, you know, hopefully it'll give them a feeling of safety, knowing that the park is being watched.
Or a deterrent, perhaps.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's it. I just
Thank
wanted
you.
to know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm just curious on that point. I know CCTV is used worldwide, you know, in a lot of situations. I get that we have special events that would require a heightened devices like that, but what's wrong with having a permanent, a fixed camera in city parks? Do we do that in addition to this? Is this something that augments that type of a system, or?
Oh, okay, so the pole camera is intended, Mayor, to help be mobile and move them where the needs are. Like, and Ed, talk about, you used them at the light rail stations, then you were able to move it to other locations. And we want to be able to cover different parks, maybe at different times of the year,
Right.
Mayor.
That's correct, Mayor. Actually, we do have one now at Alma School in Maine. We have one at Pioneer Park, and we can move those strategically based on crime or community concerns. To your point with permanent cameras, that maybe is a project down the road. I think that we would like to see future projects include hard-fixed camera system in our parks to supplement what we're proposing today.
And Mayor, we're also working with partners like Mesa Public Schools and some of the convenience stores to have access to their cameras so that when our officers come up on scene, they know what's going on in the situation, to your point.
Yeah, I'd just like to hear a discussion, because I think having cameras in parks is a great idea, more on an ongoing basis, not just,
Sure.
every now and then, or for occasions, or in response to threats or things like that. Vice Mayor.
Yes, in regards to this, I know it's done a world of wonder at Alma School in Maine in helping us with activities that were going on there, as well as Pioneer Park. I really do like this project. And I see that we're buying 4 additional pieces of equipment. Have the locations been identified? I know they're mobile, but the initial locations, have they been identified where they'll go?
Vice Mayor, they have not specifically been selected yet. We'll be working with the Parks and Rec Department to determine based on not just calls, but also community concerns, and they're going to change. So if today it's Pioneer Park and Guerrero Park, tomorrow it could be another area. That's the beauty of this product, is we can move it to the specific area that has a community concern that we can address. But they will be identified, and we'll share those with the council members in those divisions and districts prior to them being deployed.
And I think
Understand.
I was just going to say, I think as we seen the success of the ones we have today, we've added these, and if we kind of see how effective they are, I could see us continuing to do these. And it's not only mobile between parks, but it's mobile within the park too. So we can, if we figure out there's a better location. And I think that's one of the things that attracts us to this concept, that, if you put it on a fixed pole or a fixed object in the park, it's
People are aware.
there. And not to say we couldn't do that, but we were really been very happy with how these have worked, the ones we have now. And so PD came forward talking to parks, and we thought this would be good to keep adding more and deploying them throughout the city.
Right, so the objective initially is targeting the parks. I mean, that's where you feel they work the best. Of course, they can be used in a multitude of areas.
That's
and
correct.
places.
Vice Mayor, actually, the 4 that we're purchasing are designated for the parks.
Okay.
The others that we have now, we are placing based on crime concerns in a particular division. But these 4 are specifically designed and will remain in parks.
Great, thank you.
Seems like a great way to use technology to save money, because rather than hiring 2 or 3 park rangers, we have, and not that I'm against hiring park rangers,
Yeah, by the way, that
but
presentation.
yeah,
That's coming, Mayor.
and I'm excited about that. But I mean, who is monitoring these cameras? Do we have to hire additional personnel to sit and stare at a TV screen, or how's it?
That's a good question, Mayor. Actually, we are monitoring. Right now, these feeds will be piped into the police department. We'll also have some access for the Parks and Rec Department to be able to view them during the day when they have their staff. But this is one of the areas that we put our transitional duty officers who may be injured for a period of time, but they're monitored by us. And in the future, these will get piped into our real-time crime center, so it'll be part of that overall project as well.
Thank you. I know Mr. Freeman has a question, but Vice Mayor, go ahead. Why don't you continue your thought?
You answered my question.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to share one incident. When the camera system first went out at Pioneer Park, there was actually a stabbing that went on in the park. And they were able to identify it through the camera system before anybody was able to dial 911. We had police there, were able to apprehend the individual, perhaps save a life from any, further, a stabbing and stuff like that. So it was quite impressive that we don't have to wait for people to notice and call 911. We can send people, officer out right away and prevent, apprehend the situation.
That's correct, Vice Mayor, and I can't really add to that, but it was a crime in progress that the officer who was watching it observed it and actually deployed resources as it was happening. Not only were we able to find the suspect that was involved, but also provide medical services within minutes of actually seeing it on the video right in Pioneer Park.
Mr. Luna?
No, I concur. I think it's a great idea to have the cameras. But I also appreciate the idea that you're going to be partnering with Mesa Public Schools and looking at their systems and hopefully together this would be a deterrent for any potential crimes that would happen in the schools as well as our parks. So thank you for doing that.
All right, thank you very much. Any additional questions? Mr. Brady, I think you got a staff presentation on the licensing.
Yes, Mayor and Council, we committed council, we have a follow-up on the mobile food truck and peddler discussion. And so we're ready for that. So if that's okay, Mayor, would you like that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so.
Tim and Sarah, you're back for an encore performance.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. We're happy to report today that we've taken in all of your input and looked at the codes, and we've got some good changes, I think, that we've made to those codes, and we're going to go over some of the topics of that. So we want to kind of give a little bit of background, because one of the questions that was asked was, what's the difference between a mobile food vendor and a peddler? So we kind of put that together here for you. Mobile food vendors, they're typically larger. They produce smells and smoke. They have music, lighting, engine fuel sources, and mainly they've got a heating source, so usually propane tanks. Mobile food units are defined as, and we're going to define them as they are in the state statute, as a truck and a trailer. So we're going to include the trailers, as we discussed, or that was part of the discussion that we had last time as well. So we think there's enough similarities between the two once they're set up and operating. And a peddler is typically one person. It's a one-person operation. They're smaller and they take up less impact. So they're more the door-to-door, and the people that you see on the corners of streets and so forth.
Tim, before you leave that slide, it seems like when we talked about this last week, the regulations are actually maybe more demanding or onerous on the peddler than they are on the mobile food vendor. Is that?
Yeah, we're going to have a slide to show.
Okay.
Right.
All right, thank you.
I don't know, depends on.
No, I'll wait till the end to ask questions if there's some additional, but go ahead, Councilmember Spilsbury.
Of course, after we had this discussion, I started noticing these peddlers and food trucks and trailers everywhere. So the ones that are like a golf cart that are just one person, not to make things more complicated, but.
No, but Councilmember Spilsbury, it depends on what they're selling. So I mean, usually the golf carts are going to be selling merchandise that's not heated. So those are going to be peddlers.
Okay.
So.
And the definition of a food truck in state statute and that we're proposing to adopt would be a truck that can drive on the freeway and that also can be towed on the freeway. So a golf cart would fall into the peddler category in that case.
That's a good way to identify that. Thank you.
Yes. And I think that'll be easy for staff and also the citizens to understand too. That's a good way to kind of classify that. So. Some examples of mobile food vendors would be grills, trailers, barbecues that are towed, like we just said, cooking food preparation inside, and also ice cream trucks will fall under the mobile food vendor code. Some examples for peddlers would be the push carts, pop-up tables, tents, equipment such as grills or others that are put on a vehicle and transported. And then there your typical sales were balloons, flowers, stuffed animals, and so forth that we see on the side of the road. And also the door-to-door vending will be peddlers. Here's kind of the difference between the two between the mobile food vendor and the peddler. The mobile food vendor will require an annual fire inspection from any jurisdiction. There'll be background checks on the owners only, and there's no fingerprinting for the mobile food vendors. On the peddler side, there's no fire inspection. The background check is for every individual, and fingerprinting will be done only for door-to-door. So those are your two main differences between the two licenses. And you see, I think there's pros and cons for both sides of those, but I think this is the best way to classify them and to license them.
So I guess this is the question I was asking earlier. Did that seem a little more onerous to have a background check for every individual if you're, for a peddler's license? But I guess on the other hand, peddlers are typically a one-person operation, so without
Right.
multiple employees, it's a small push cart with, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
And fingerprinting only if going door to door, okay.
And that's a big one right there, because a lot of the complaints we had before was having to fingerprint everybody and the expense and the time it took to do that. So we're taking that away on the peddler side and only doing the ones that are going to door. So that's going to be a great improvement, I think.
Okay,
If you go back historically, I remember when communities were dealing with a lot more door-to-door salespeople, and there were a lot of concerns about who was allowed to go do that work and kind of the security of neighborhoods and people in their homes. And that's where I think the fingerprinting came in years ago when that was a requirement. So, but we didn't want to, but when we created when we brought mobile food trucks in, they just were put under the peddlers section of the code. And so by splitting and creating a new section, we can take them out of that requirement. But we've remained or still kept in place the fingerprinting for peddlers, just because, again, that does have the assumption that peddlers could be those who are going door to door should be fingerprinted. That just carries over from past experiences that have probably been in there for years.
Yes.
and I apologize, this, I should know the answer to this. Is this exclusively for the sale of food? What if I'm peddling door to door something, brooms
No, it could
or
be, yeah.
Yes.
vacuum cleaners or something else?
So Mayor, are you asking if a peddler is selling food or is?
Is the peddler license required only if I'm selling food? What if I'm selling a piece of merchandise other than food?
No, so the peddler license will be required for the sale of any goods, wares, food. It's all.
Okay.
And Sarah, how about, a lot of times, I think the experience is you have, sometimes I've seen younger age individuals going to door asking for donations to provide for certain,
Yeah.
I guess, nonprofit groups. Are they required to be fingerprinted?
Mayor and council members, we are excluding minors from the requirement of a peddler license, as
Okay.
well as nonprofits, which I think that a lot of those would fall under as well.
I would say, so the exception would be a minor or, a Girl Scout, for example, knocking on doors, selling, would be excluded because she's a minor. An adult, though, that goes around and sells magazine subscriptions or fill in the blank, anything, would be subject to the peddler's license,
That's correct, Mayor.
unless they're doing a nonprofit fundraiser. Okay, thank you. Mr. Heredia.
Is this in addition to any of the state, do you need a food handler's card for being a food vendor? Is that part of this, or is that are you all excluding because that's a state requirement, or?
So in Councilmember Heredia, in the peddler code, we aren't requiring a food handler's permit. We just require our city license. Was that your question? Sorry, I might have.
Maybe for the mobile food vendor, are we requiring a food handler's license, or is that part of a requirement that they have to get through the state?
Yes, so the mobile food vendors will have to go through both the state and the county for various licensing and permitting regarding food handling.
Okay. So this is in addition to whatever the county and state requires?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect.
Okay. And then as far as the mobile food vendors, there are specific operational requirements. We're going to require that they can't be within 25 feet of a residence with some exceptions, and there's also going to be parking regulations for the right-of-way. And that's basically our presentation.
Okay, I'm sorry, I still have a question.
Sure.
One of the scenarios that we focused on a week ago was probably the best description is exactly what it is, the carne asada tent that is, maybe arrives on a trailer, but it might be, and then there's also near my home a very popular carne asada business that's operates in the parking lot of a convenience store, and there's nothing mobile about it. I mean, they just, I think the tent stays up 24/7. Maybe it comes up on weekends, I don't know. But it's not so much a mobile eating establishment as it's just an outdoor.
Is it part of the restaurant, Mayor?
I'm going to say yes in this case, but I think there's, There's also situations where there are people that, like it next to the furniture store, that it's just a regular pop-up event.
So let's go back to let's start with the first definition. I don't think the answers all your question, but the first definitions we talked about, I don't know if you go to that slide, that when we use the word trailer, yeah. So this is something when we define that are towed, so this is trailers that are towed. So they would have to have, I guess the way distinction is, they have to be, again, receive a license for that trailer to be pulled on the public roads, okay? So if it's someone who's pulling that big barrel barbecuer, but they're hauling it behind a truck or whatever, and that trailer, or what that barbecue sits on has a trailer, it's a licensed trailer to be road, it can be on the street, then it would fall under the mobile food truck.
I get it. Okay, so if it's on wheels, it's a mobile food vendor.
Yeah.
If it's something you lift out of the back and pull out to the front of your business, then that's a different animal, and we regulate that differently.
Yeah, I think that's the best way we can.
And that's subject to zoning requirements and just all the same food handling requirements as a brick and mortar restaurant.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Council, any more questions on this? Mr. Freeman?
Tim, can you go back to the 25-foot slide away from a residence? With exceptions, can you explain maybe what the exceptions might be?
Sure. Councilmember Freeman, I can set forth those exceptions for you. One of them is going to be for ice cream trucks, just because they will be driving through residential neighborhoods, and we need to make that allowance for them. Although we won't allow ice cream trucks to be parked in the same spot for more than an hour at a time, or during an 8-hour period is our proposal. And then for mobile food units parking on private property with the permission of the private property owner, they'll be able to do that, as well as parking directly adjacent to a private property and operating out of the street or right-of-way, as long as they're in compliance with the right-of-way requirements. So sometimes food trucks who are operating at a private party, they don't have room to pull up into the actual property and have to be in the street, and so we'll have an allowance for that as well.
Good. That would be my follow-up question, so you answered it. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we've made some modifications to the proposed ordinance that we're introducing on Monday night. Is that correct? And then we're setting this for a public hearing at the following council meeting, because I expect some industry people, will want to show up and weigh in on this. So.
Yeah, and Mayor, just so you know, we'll load up the revised ordinance later today. And so the ordinance that we've discussed this morning is, we have the old ordinance currently in Legistar, but this afternoon or by this evening, you'll see the revised ordinance. There's obviously, and as Councilmember Freeman just asked, like, a specific questions, there's obviously sort of little nuanced aspects of it. For example, I'll give another one, is that ice cream trucks, I think we're not requiring the annual fire and inspection. So, PowerPoint, bullet points tend to be generalities, but we get down to very specific nuanced aspects of it, and so the ordinance has those nuances in it. That'll be available later this afternoon.
And then in the future, Mayor, as we mentioned, Nano's going to be working on text amendments to the zoning code that deal specifically with mobile food trucks, that we'll be bringing that back to council too.
Great.
Right now, Nana has to make an interpretation for that purpose, which I think it's kind of looking at what a small restaurant where it would be, but we want to make it more, explicit in the code, and so we need to make those text amendments in the future.
Okay. Well, thank you. I know that the industry and council, that we all appreciate the effort on staff to update these codes, and it'll be interesting to see if as it evolves more, because I have a feeling that we will get some response from the public on this and some critique on what's being proposed, which is great, that's why we do it this way. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Brady, any other presentations from staff on Monday's agenda?
I don't believe we had any others planned, Mayor.
Okay, council, any other questions on anything on Monday's agenda? Vice Mayor.
I have a question on 5D. It's more of wanting an overview on the work that's going to be done on the US 60 and Pueblo Avenue, what that project entails. Is RJ here? 5D.
Val Vista Arterial Road improvements.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, good morning. So this is a project agreement with Maricopa Association of Governments for work on Val Vista from the 60 north to Pueblo, which will be the equivalent of 8th Avenue. We're adding capacity. There's some safety issues on that stretch of Val Vista, so this project will address both capacity and safety. So this is the agreement that sets forth the reimbursement that we will get from MAG. This is one of the projects that's included in the Mesa Moves bond program. So we will use bond proceeds to pay for the project, but then we'll get reimbursement from MAG as laid out in this agreement, and that reimbursement can then be used for other projects.
So,
Okay, so this is part of the Mesa Moves project. Okay.
yeah, and intentionally, we bring this agreement to council so we can make application to the regional association to get reimbursement for it.
So this will allow Prop 400 money, the sales tax money, to come back to Mesa. And if you recall, we have the $100 million in bond authorization. But by using that money, then we'll get an additional $62 million back from MAG. And this is one of those projects that will get reimbursement dollars that can be used for arterial reconstruct, our active transportation projects, and other projects that are outside the bond.
So the exact improvement, has it been identified? Is there an intersection there? Or?
There is. I'm going from memory here because it's going to go north. And so I can get you the details of I'll provide an overlay, an outline of the project for you.
But let me just quickly and RJ said it, but to be eligible for reimbursement for MAG dollars, we have to demonstrate that we are increasing capacity.
There's both capacity and safety as part of this project, and that's the distinction. If we were just doing a reconstruct, for example, we're not adding capacity or doing safety improvements, those projects are not eligible for reimbursement. So back to Mesa Moves, we've identified $45 million in reconstruct, but it's the reimbursement dollars that we then use to fund projects that are not otherwise eligible for MAG reimbursement.
Great.
But I can get you the specifics of the project. That's an area where we've had some accident history as well as capacity issues. So this is a really good project.
Yeah.
And most likely, it is going to be Val Vista at Southern, I suspect, is where we're going to see most of the work.
Yes, it is. It's going to go through. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Brady. It will go through the intersection of Southern. So we are adding some turn lanes there as well. And that's what gives us the capacity improvements as well as safety.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Council. Any other questions regarding Monday night's agenda? All right, hearing none, the next item on our agenda for this meeting is item 2A. That's to hear a presentation, discuss, and provide direction on the city's next steps in preparation for the 2021 council redistricting and take action on the creation of a 2021 redistricting commission and appointing members to the commission. Jeff and Scott, I know we've been working on this for quite a while. Looking forward to getting updated.
Mr. Mayor, Council, good morning. This helps complete your trifecta. You've had a once in a 100-year pandemic, once in a 10-year census, and now another once every 10-year redistricting. So congratulations on that. But as a follow-up, of course, to Mr. Robbins' good work that he and all of staff did throughout trying to work on our census numbers, and of course we were proud of getting those numbers up to the response rate that we were hoping for. Of course, all of us will be anxiously waiting till August when we see the specific breakdown. We saw the response coming out of the Census Bureau this week that Arizona's count was lower than anticipated. So no one knows what that means until we get the data in August. But one thing that we do know for certain is that those census numbers for Mesa will lead to our once every 10-year redistricting. And that's what we're here to talk to you about and to answer any questions that you may have. And also, as the mayor said, to appoint the commission that will, the independent commission that's called for in the city charter to oversee this process. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Robbins, the guy who's doing all the real work in this to lead you through what the process is going to be over the next several months and answer any questions you have about the independent commission.
Well, Mayor, Council, good morning. It's great to be with you today. And we did do a great job with the census. And as Scott said, we're excited to see the data. This is the natural culmination of that. In our in our charter, the charter calls for the redistricting process to occur every year after the census. And the Mesa district system was created in 1998. That is what creates this process essentially for us to have to then modify those geographic boundaries. The system we have now is from that 1998 creation. It has a mayor who is elected at large, 6 council members, each with their own district, and those districts, as the city charter calls for, should be equalized by population after we receive the census data. We want to make clear that our redistricting process is not a wholesale tearing up of the existing map. What we are really doing is adjusting the boundaries of the existing districts. So, for example, Councilmember Freeman, District 1 will not suddenly end up in Southeast Mesa. It's going to remain in its same general location, but we're going to be working on those boundary adjustments. One of the other requirements that we want you to know about is that the city charter requires that we keep each of the city council members within their district, and that will have some implications on how we end up drawing the map. Our redistricting process will adhere to the highest national standards for redistricting. That includes contiguity, so each of the council districts will be one continuous shape. It will be very compact. It doesn't mean that we won't have any jogs. For example, if we needed to keep a council member in their district per the city charter, we might have a slight jog. That is okay as long as we have a reason for why we're doing it. They respect communities of interest. So when we think about communities of interest, that can be a lot of different things, but a good way to think of it is the Asian district. We want to make sure that we know those boundaries well when we are considering the district boundaries so that we don't bifurcate that district. We want them to stay within one single council district so that their voice isn't artificially diluted. We also, as mentioned, we keep those districts relatively equal in population. They are consistent with natural boundaries and political boundaries, so we won't have a boundary that's jogging off into Tempe. And we will be using a lot of data and public testimony so that we can make the best decisions possible. As Scott mentioned, there is a 5-person nonpartisan redistricting commission that we will be bringing for consideration for you today. This is a look at your commission members and the names that we propose to you. This redistricting commission's role is to oversee the redistricting process, comply with the Voting Rights Act, and then especially important is to provide direction for the consultant, which I'll talk about in a moment, and especially when it comes to engagement and citizen engagement and helping to get the voice of our residents in the process. They also review and incorporate citizen feedback into the redistricting map, and then they bring a map to you for consideration. We do have a consultant that will be assisting in this. So 2 C words, commission consultant. The consultant is a professional that works in redistricting and other demographic services. They will be leading our public meetings, ensuring compliance with the Voter Rights Act, and then also guiding our commission on the best way to draw a map that represents our city. Our redistricting consultant is Redistricting Partners. They've conducted over 35 redistricting projects, some of them being very large and complex, and we are confident in their ability to represent the city well and to do a great job, and we look forward to working with them. We also wanted to bring to your attention that we have gone after a grant through the NLC, and we've been awarded that grant for $20,000. This grant allows us to go out to members of our community that historically have not maybe participated as much in this type of civic endeavor, and we're really excited about this grant. We have some other great partners that are continuing to work with us, that worked with us on the census, Benedictine University, Mesa Community College, Mesa Public Schools, and we're working with them to get students, members of the Hispanic community and low to moderate income members of our community to understand the redistricting process and to hopefully gain their public testimony in this process. One thing that you're all very well aware of, Council, is that the data has been delayed. The data from the Census Bureau, primarily because of the pandemic, but for many other factors, that data is coming to us much later than it normally does. And so we want to assure you that we're not cutting any corners in our process. It's going to work exactly the same way as it should. We're just going to be moving very fast and very efficiently. And big thanks to our commission members who helped make that happen. We do want to make you aware of a few important dates. One of those is that by city charter, we must complete this process by March 7th, 2022. That is the last day to file paperwork for candidates who are running for office. Now, as you're all very well aware, you have to go and get signatures to file that paperwork, and we are being very intentional in giving those candidates plenty of time to get out there and do their work. So we are pushing to have our final possible council action in December of 2021.
And Mayor and Jeff, maybe just step in for just a second, because we also found out in the last few days, another layer to that. Deanne was contacted by Maricopa County Elections with their desire to see our map, any map changes to our map sent to them by December as well. So that is consistent with our time frame. We plan to work aggressively to meet that deadline, but that's yet another incentive for us, or requirement, some might say, but incentive nonetheless to get these maps finalized and approved by council in December.
Because of that very aggressive timeline, thank you again, COVID.
Can I just jump in on real quick on that?
Yes.
And just remind our council in December, those meetings are compressed. They're not the 1st and 3rd. They're usually in the first 2 weeks of December. So it's not the middle of December. Most likely, and I don't have the schedule in front of me. I think it's the 1st, it's the 8th of December.
Oh, yeah.
So just
Yeah.
add to that point.
That's good, because again, I think the point we're making here is to give council candidates a fair chance at getting their signatures. We need to give them a few months to do that. And remind me, it's, I apologize for my ignorance, is it 250 signatures for a council petition, or is it 500?
It's 250 for council. Sorry,
250?
Mayor, it's 250.
Yeah. So that's certainly a doable thing, particularly over if the deadline is the end of March and we give someone from the beginning of December to the end of March, if they're a viable candidate, they'll be able to get 250 signatures. So I don't think this is a compressed timeline for council candidates to have a fair chance to get on the ballot.
Mayor, if I might add to the additional consideration is with redistricting, a candidate may not necessarily know what district they reside in until redistricting is completed.
That's a
Only
great
the vice
point.
mayor will know which district she's going to be residing in.
Okay. I'm sorry, they explain that again. She can't be gerrymandered out of her district.
Exactly.
And she's
They
the only
can't.
incumbent that's up in this
That's
next cycle,
eligible to
correct?
rerun. Exactly.
So all bets are off on on 5 and 6 as to what the boundaries might be. We don't have to draw them around an individual's home address.
And Mayor, Council, it's also, we won't mention, because we got a little bit ahead, that's the last possible date for council action. We actually intend to bring you the data in November. So we're hoping to well beat that December target. I'll explain what that means in a moment, though, because it's a little complicated. It has to do with our city charter. So we are going to, that aggressive timeline, we're going to be moving to hit that. And so we're doing everything we possibly can before the data arrives. That includes appointing our commission, training them, working on our public outreach strategy. And then somewhere around July or August, we're going to begin going out. And we will go to every council district, whether that's in person or online. That will depend on the situation. Especially with the pandemic, but we are agile. We have the tools to do it either way, any way that we need to. And then after the data arrives, that's when we will begin hearing public testimony, and the commission will begin putting their heads down and really working on this map to get it right. And the date that we intend to come to you is November 15th, 2021. But it could be December 2021, and here's why that is. The city charter prescribes a process in which, I guess I'll describe it for you. The city commission will come to you November 15th, and they will present to you a map. The city council then can, at that time, choose to reject that map and provide comments to the commission. If you can also accept the map too, and then our process ends. But if you choose to reject that map, the city commission would then go back to the drawing board, look at the map. They are, we should say, under no obligation to take those recommendations from council. They can, they cannot. And then they can come back again in December to bring you that revised map. Now, when they come back to you that second time, that ends the process. The city council is then obligated to accept whatever map that they bring back in December. So when we say our timeline, it could end in November if the city council accepts the map. If you reject the map, our process would end in early December.
That doesn't preclude the council from being part of the community engagement early on in the process to express their concerns or views about redistricting, even before it shows up before council. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, City Manager. So we expect that you know your districts very, very well, and we would like you to be involved in giving us feedback about and information, and we see a very open communication between council. Now, again, the actual decision of drawing the map, that is delegated to the commission, but we would love to have as much information, participation from council as possible.
And Mayor and Council, if we could just piggyback on that as well, because I think we've learned from the past that when we did in-person district-specific meetings, turnout was very questionable as far as public participation on this. Redistricting is a very complicated issue. Trying to get interest and people engaged to come out on a Tuesday night at 6 o'clock and engage in a process was very challenging. And so that's what we really appreciate about the approach that Jeff has worked with on our consultants, because this is a very interactive virtual approach that people can take using all the technology and tools available today, so that people can do this at home and provide feedback. They can do it in their church groups or community groups or whatever communal activity that they may have, where we can invite people and engage people to get more involved in the redistricting process, especially as it relates to communities of interest and expressing that. So we're really excited about that, and we would love to partner with all of you and your council offices to get the word out via social media. Through the city, of course, will be pushing it out through all of our traditional communication channels, but to have you help be the face to push your residents and constituents to get engaged in this process.
So thank you, Scott, for bringing that up, because I know that we all want to be involved in the process, and if you keep us in the loop and let us know when you're going to be having these meetings, I think it's essential. And I appreciate you letting us know that we can put it on our own social media channels so that we can communicate this to our constituents that this has actually happened. This is a very important process. It's going to determine who the next council candidate is going to be for District 5 and District 6, and then we know that our vice mayor will be. I'm sure considering that as well. So thank you. Just make sure that we're part of you keep us in the loop. Let us know when you're going to have these meetings, and I know that many of us are going to be engaged in this process.
Thank you. Thank you for all of your work on this. I know it's a huge, big, complicated process. My daughter, that's a senior at Mesa High, got to do this redistricting activity in her government class, and so she came home and was talking to me about it, so that was fun. I just had a question on, I don't think, Mayor, were you around when the charter was done in '98? Would you have been on council?
I was on the council when we adopted the districting system.
So maybe you have insight that none of us have, but I'm just wondering what this decision is about, the having to approve the second one, and we don't get a say on it. So we could actually get a worse map come back and we have to approve it. It just seems a little crazy to me. So do you have any background information on that? And I get you don't want to come back, we don't like it, go back. I mean, there's got to be a final line at some point, but it seems crazy that we have to approve the second one.
Yeah, Mayor and Councilmember Salisbury, I certainly don't want to guess what the commission was thinking at the time or what the council was thinking at the time as this was referred to the voters for approval. But I think the idea is you do see, even at the state level, if, let's say, for example, you're in the state legislature, you don't get any say on your independent redistricting commission map. When that body acts and adopts the legislative map or the congressional map, it's done. And so this actually does provide council a layer of input. Of course, it's council's discretion of whether they feel that's enough input, but it does at least provide one step that you sometimes don't see in all independent redistricting commissions.
Here's my recollection of 1998. I remember being in favor of a hybrid system, where we didn't have just exclusively districts. We had some more than just the mayor that was elected at large. But the concern at the time was that Mesa was growing really, really fast, and Mesa is geographically very large, and so it was true that the entire council, kind of came from the established neighborhoods of West Mesa, and we didn't have a reason or motivation, to drive out on the farthest, nether regions of the city and notice that things were amiss. And so that was the rationale behind adopting the district system. And as Scott pointed out, this is so highly political that I think at some point you've got to impose it on an elected person, right? Because you might get some infighting going on and someone feeling threatened or taking ownership of a certain segment of their district. It's at some point you've got to just say, sorry, we're going to impose this on the electeds rather than let them choose their own fate.
So another question, then there were 6 districts when you created the districts, and so how come we have 5 people? Is it just we needed an uneven number, or instead of having like 6 people?
If I might, I actually was in the city clerk's office
There you
when,
go.
in 1998. And that was a citizen initiative, and it was their proposal. I think it was part of the original language of the initiative that council would have 2 shots at it. And I don't know if it set up the number of district commission members or not, but it may have. I would have to go back to the language and see.
You don't remember the reasoning why, though? I mean, I guess it sounds like we're
For
lucky
5?
we even have the one chance, but.
Oh, the reasoning for two
Yeah.
tries? No, I don't remember.
don't
I'd
remember
have to go
the-
back to the language and look and see if it.
Yeah, and like I said, this was not written by the council. This was written by the supporters of an initiative.
Okay.
So I wasn't a party to drafting that either.
And Mayor, Councilmember Spilsbury, I don't know if this makes you feel better or worse, but the State Independent Redistricting Commission is also 5 individuals. So all 7 million Arizona residents are divided up by the 5 members of the State Independent Redistricting Commission. So I can't speak for the thought but in 98 why only 5, but that's not uncommon, I don't think, for commissions.
So we should be lucky we have 5 for our small city.
Just, Mayor, and Councilmember, right, I think it's probably just this notion that an uneven number, of course, to get some consensus and majority from the commission, but I can't speak to why 5 was the number they
Okay,
decided.
and the committee members are spread out across the city, right? They come from different parts of the city, too.
But if you don't mind, let me address that because I know Mr. Freeman has a comment as well. Because this ultimately can be decided by these individuals and not by the council, we took very seriously appointing very qualified, very sound, very mature and seasoned and thoughtful people to be on this board. So I'm proud of the appointments that we've made. I think you can see it's very diverse, geographically, ethnically, every way. But these are very solid individuals, because ultimately they might be the ones making these ultimate decisions. So I do recommend to you the individuals that have been appointed here. I think they're very good.
Mayor, just
Yes.
quickly, just based on my experience 10 years ago, when you look at all the criteria that Jeff put in at the beginning about creating population equity and there's issues about kind of considering majority minority districts and keeping council members in their districts. At the end of the day, one of the reasons you hire these consultants is because they have the software that's going to take all that into account. The majority of the census tracts, there won't be any question. I mean, there will not be a lot of dispute about the majority of it. It is the edges, right, that become the discussion, right? Does the line, even though it's a census tract, does it go through a neighborhood? What would happen if a line started bifurcating like a Red Mountain or certain subdivisions? And that's where the conversation, I think where council want to weigh in is looking, I think if you'll be patient and let them run the numbers and get that, or run the census tracts numbers, and you can see how that lays out, because at some point, there has to be this idea of how you balance things out, population-wise, keeping council members there, but also considering these neighborhoods of interest and cultural interest and neighborhoods. But it's always, it seemed like there was just a few, it was on the edges, right, is where the discussion is. And so just as you look at it, as you prepared for that, that's where I would ask you to really pay attention to, is where you see those lines go through neighborhoods. It's always on the edges that we spent most of the time having the discussion, because at some point, the math is the math, and it's obvious if Mesa is growing significantly to the southeast, well, there's going to be a lot of shifting in that direction in order to balance out those populations. But at the same time, as you're moving that direction, you guys become the anchors, right? The points of anchor in that drawing of that shape. And so all those things become very important in the discussion. So just my experience, it was always the edges and sometimes the extended. I think Frankie's got a nice, I don't know what he calls it, a finger or a foot or whatever going across the bottom there. So, yeah.
I think this goes to the point that Jeff made earlier about communities of interest. What we're trying to do is not break those up. We want to encourage there to be communities of interest in our community. Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this has been pretty much answered, but I guess the redistricting will be driven by the population growth in our respective areas and how it shifts and moves. And like you say, the fringes and things and how it's going to be divided up. And so our districts, by probably population, I'll use that word, or residents in our respective districts, may increase the number. Like, I think, for example, we may have 85,000 residents in each respective district, right? And then, so that will probably increase, or you try to keep it comparable, close to an even number amongst each district.
518,000.
518,000. So if you divide 518 by 6 today, that's where we've got to get to. So I don't know what everybody thinks our population today is, but you're gonna have to get over 86, close to 86,000, more or less, right? So if you have a current district is, I don't know what the population of your district is, but I suspect for some of you it's less. And so that's where they have to move. And most likely 5 and 6 are more than, I suspect District 6 Councilman Thompson's is maybe over 100,000, right? So it's got to shift. That's the balancing that takes place first. That's like one of the first things that'll happen, and then they'll start playing with the edges.
Yeah, I remember participating in 10 years ago when the shift happened and being involved in that. I guess my last question is, how much will this cost, the redistricting effort with our party? I know we got the $20,000 grant, but I think it's probably more than that.
Yes, it is. So we released an RFP, as we discussed back in November, for different consultants, and they do provide a lot of services. The current consultant, I'm going to get this number a little bit off, but it's roughly 6 figures to have them come in and work with us. On top of that, we anticipate that the commission is going to meet and discuss this public outreach plan, and they may have a request, that may or may not, I believe they would though, have a request for council for some funding to just get the word out, make sure we do due diligence to let people know that this is happening and to raise awareness. That's still to be decided. So, and then we also have a tool that we're using. It's called District R, and we'll be informing you and the rest of our residents how to use that tool. That's the online engagement that Scott was talking about, and that tool was roughly around 10,000.
So, Mayor, Council Member, we're probably talking in the range of about $150,000, give or take.
I just say, what's your budget?
Yeah,
proposed budget
that's it
for
right now. That's
yes, sir. Right now, as Mr. Brady said, that's what we're looking at, and really that determining factor is about citizen outreach and engagement and advertising and other things that we may do to get the words out. But of course, we're trying to use traditional media, social media, all of those things that are available and more low cost, of course, to get the word out as well.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
You bet. Vice Mayor.
Do the consultants look at upcoming growth? I know we have a lot of projects, especially in District 6, that we've approved, and they are a contiguous area when they're built out. I would assume, even though they're not built out at this time, that that's taken into consideration. So the redistricting won't have an effect of dividing areas that are not yet built.
Yes, and so there's, without getting into too much detail, there is a Supreme Court case that designates how much wiggle room we have in, that the word roughly equal, and that's about 10%. And so that would mean the largest district by population is not 10% larger than the smallest district by population. And we can generally work within that frame. There may be circumstances where we see that there are districts that are projected to just keep on exploding, and it may make sense there to give a little bit of wiggle room. That is a possibility and something that they could consider, yes.
Council, Mr. Luna, other comments?
No, I just wanted to comment on the team that's going to, or in a district redistricting committee. It's a stellar group of people. I mean, it's an amazing, and the amount of work that they have to do is incredible. So we do really have to congratulate them and thank them for all the hard work. I think there was 6 hours of training initially they have to go through, plus all the public meetings. This is a lot of work. So so my gratitude goes out to them for them and the selection of this committee. It's a great committee, and they represent the citizens of this city, and ultimately the citizens are going to decide what the districts are going to look like. So thank you. I just want to publicly acknowledge them. Mayor, do you need a motion or?
Yes, I believe, but this is agendized for action to appoint to create that board and appoint those individuals.
I'd make the motion, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Luna. Seconded by Ms. Spilsbury. Is there additional discussion on the motion to appoint these individuals? If not, I think we can do this as a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Before I let you walk away, Jeff, I think we were all, and this is on a related but slightly different topic. We were all disappointed to see that Arizona failed to qualify for an additional congressional seat. To me, that implies that there has been an undercount in Arizona. I know that it's our impression that as far as Mesa goes, at least our voluntary response rate was actually higher this census than it was the previous census, so I don't think we were anticipating a significant undercount. And I know you're going to come back in August when we get the specific city numbers, but would it be fair to say that what happened? Are we thinking that there's an undercount, and are we thinking that there's likely an undercount in Mesa as well?
I'll keep it brief, and I'm kind of speculating a little bit because we don't have the data yet, but I can say this, that our residents did their job. They came out in this last census. We had a 4.8 increase in our self-response rate, and that's really the only thing that we can control at the local level. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but that's a huge shift upwards, and that's in the right direction. We can always do better, and we learned a lot in that process. We hope to do better even in 2030. What we do know, and Mayor, you're well aware of this too, is that our rural areas got pounded, and this is nationwide because of the way that the rollout happened with the census. We know that areas like our Navajo Nation and many other tribal areas, they had an undercount there. We are expecting, at least our self-response rates, we can say are much lower than they were in the previous census in 2010. And that is concerning. I can't point to a single factor that why we didn't get the extra seat that we were projected to receive. It could just be that other states grew faster or didn't shrink as much as we expected. I think that's all we can say at this point for sure. But I can say that as a city, we performed very well.
That was certainly my impression as well. I think we did put forth a great effort, and a lot of folks worked hard, and at least the initial response would indicate that we were successful at that. So we're all look forward to dissecting what happened in August when we get the numbers. Okay, thank you very much. We are now on the part of our agenda where we're going to start again into some budget presentations. We've been meeting for an hour. I know that we would like to wrap up by 10 o'clock because there are other appointments that some council members have. That being the case, I think we're in the middle of our 2-hour session. Why don't we take a 5-minute break, reconvene at 8:35 for the budget presentations.
Julie, I thought the same question you were asking about.
Hi, Cookie. All right, thank you. We are ready to reconvene our City Council study session. The next item on our agenda is to hear presentations from departments on their budgets, and we're beginning with one of our favorites. Welcome, the Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities budget.
Mayor, before Andrea begins, I just want to express my appreciation to Andrea for what, since Mark abandoned the department and left him behind, Andrea's done a great job in helping the department move forward and continue in success, and I think she's looking forward to a busy summer, and she's been very helpful in working through a lot of issues. So I just want to express my appreciation to her in front of the council and let everyone know what a great job she's doing. So anyway, Andrea?
Thank you very much. Mayor, Council, Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities, just to frame our discussion, our mission statement to contribute to a healthy and vibrant community by providing exceptional experiences and services to those who live, work, and play in Mesa. And I wanted to start out with a shout out to our staff. The past year has been amazing and incredible and really unsettling. And we have gone through so many changes in pausing programs, temporarily closing facilities, opening them back up for public health purposes, trying to make sure we're still providing services to those most needy in our community, still keeping all of our park system and our city buildings open and viable and safe for everybody. It's been an amazing experience. We're getting ready to relaunch into hopefully full operations again over the next few months. And I really appreciate everything everybody has done to contribute to that. Start out with some numbers. So this is taking a look at our 2 fiscal years where we had somewhat pauses in operations in fiscal year 2020 and 21. And so it's difficult to look at numbers in terms of trends in what our expenses are, especially when you're looking at the past 2 years. So our proposed budget for fiscal year 22 is assuming that we're able to relaunch into full operations again, but it's taking some time to get to that point. And I'll talk through some enhancement requests that we have in place for the coming year to help us take a look at that. But if you look at the bottom line numbers in here, it looks like a considerable increase. I will say this is for the fiscal year 22, that $37.7 million in the budget also includes about $2 million in O&M and CIP that we'll talk through that are coming into our budget. It includes some changes in our fees and charges, putting the capacity back in place to be able to have budget capacity for events and concerts at the convention center and amphitheater, continued operations at the golf course and cemetery, and what has stayed relatively stable through this is our facility maintenance budget. So that includes all of that. On a adjusted budget level, it's not really an increase. It's still keeping operations about the same as what we saw in fiscal year 2019, which was our last full year of operations.
Andrew, just to make clear, you said it, but make it clear to council. What she was indicating is this is really exciting for us because there will be new parks coming online in the coming years. So what this budget does, it includes now, obviously, Andrea's operations has to absorb now the ongoing maintenance of those new projects that will be coming online during the next fiscal year. So, and I think you're going to cover that later, right?
Right. We'll go through some of those.
I'm looking forward to, you saved me from asking the question because thank you. I do want to be reminded what facilities are going to come online. But before we leave this slide, I noticed the post is coming on, is a new budget item. When do we, is that operation? I mean, is that, are we going to, is that facility going to be functioning this next fiscal year, or is that is that some sort of ramping up?
Probably the end of the fiscal year, right?
Fall of 2022 is when we're planning to start operations there. And so this is gearing up and ramping to it. So the operation and maintenance dollars come in with fiscal year 22.
Okay, thank you.
So getting into our enhancement requests, a big one has to do with the collaboration and cooperation we're doing with the police department and just getting a better presence of public safety in our park system. So we have an addition of 4 park rangers included in our request that will bring our total park ranger force to 11. And just as a reminder, overall, they're doing an amazing job of being ambassadors in our park system, getting people to enjoy the parks, making sure they're a safe environment, reinforcing the park regulations, also doing fishing clinics and interactions with kids programs as they're in the park system. But overall, the park rangers are currently spending about 75% of their time addressing homelessness issues in the park system. And in that, about 33% of their time is in the downtown park area. And so we're really feeling the pressure to add more resources into the park rangers and continuing. They have a great relationship with the police department. They're interacting and supporting each other, providing backup, providing a heads up if they're starting to see things in the parks that may need additional presence from the police. But just in general, one of the metrics that we're tracking is how much interaction the park rangers have with homelessness in the park system. So that may be addressing folks that are staying there overnight, addressing concerns of trash that gets left behind, anything that's in violation of the park rules. And so what this shows is over the past year, the homeless-related contacts, assists, warnings, arrests, citations that end up happening through the park system. But like I said, about a third of that is in the downtown park area. The area highlighted in March looks like a big jump up. We did have, because of COVID and other illnesses, just a back and forth staff being out. And so starting in this time period in February and March, we started to see our full staff back on duty. And that's why the increase is there. Another enhancement request is to put more resources to our marketing and outreach efforts. We estimate that we have about 775,000 touches out to our residents through our website, through social media throughout the year. And as we ramp up all of our programs across the board, we'd like to be able to get more of our message out, help people understand what programs we're offering, what kinds of online opportunities we have, registration opportunities, and just we still hear an awful lot of, oh, I didn't know that park existed. So we're trying to put more resources to it, and that's the increase here is to add a second marketing position in our department full-time. We've had 1.5 folks dedicated to this over the past few years. Right when COVID hit, we were getting ready to ramp this up, and then we pulled programming back. And so we're going back to trying to increase our outreach efforts through here. A lot of information on this slide, but just as an overview, as the convention center and amphitheater get ready to reopen full operations for events and concerts, we are continuing to go through, as we have been for the past few years, modernization of the site. And so we've had a series of improvements. We were able to put all new finishes, for example, in the conference theater. It looks beautiful, and we're looking forward to people being able to book events in there again. We have some additional work we want to do, similar lines to just make it look more modern and appealing in the Palo Verde room across the hall there. These are both in Building B. We're still looking at providing better event support with wider door openings to the outside for when events are setting up in the main hall and in the amphitheater. So those are some of the improvements that are coming down the line. We've put digital signage inside all of the buildings, and we're getting ready to do something similar on the outside to help people see. I know that's been, as we've had the food distributions and the vaccination pod there, just people trying to figure out where to go. We want to improve the signage on the outside as well. Energy management systems, so those are the systems that are controlling our air conditioning and building systems throughout. We have a series of them that have aged out, and we're needing to spend about $1.5 million to upgrade those systems to what we can continue to maintain in a safe way for network access. And so that is in line with our sustainability goals of just ensuring that we're monitoring energy usage in the buildings. And then we are getting ready to launch a comprehensive master plan update. Plan to spend up to $400,000 on that effort over the coming year. The last time we did a full master plan update was in 2002. And since then, we've had a series of other plan updates that we've incorporated into our operations. We did one when Mark came on board, and we were trying to redirect and focus our park system for the coming years. That was in 2011. In 2017, we did a strategic plan update when we brought in facility maintenance into our department. And so now we're looking at overall on the park system where we want to go moving forward for both park locations, reaching that 10-minute walk to a park goal that we have throughout the city, trying to address our recreation offerings, making sure we're reaching more segments of our community.
Andrea, before you leave this slide, Council, let me just, I recall in years in the past, we've had a lot of discussions about that convention center. What's the purpose of the convention? What should we do with the convention center? There's been all kinds of questions about its purpose. I would tell you today that real estate has been the most valuable real estate in this city during the last year plus. And I think we've realized now that how critically important it is for us to have space, whether it's, and the parking lot may be the most valuable part, but just think about what that has meant to this community to have a location like that we could do the distribution of food, and we could do the food preparation, the kitchen behind there. And I know Jen was there when I was there once, and just all that took place behind the scenes. And then the exhibit hall and the ability to have the food staged there and assembled, and the ability to park the big semi trucks. And then, of course, today's Thursday, all the vaccines that are being distributed there. So we really feel while we will always kind of be in this unique position of how we, the types of programs and marketing it for different regional and local purposes, I think we should always keep in mind at the end of the day, this becomes an incredibly important asset for our community during these challenging times. And so we do feel like we really need to keep up to date, the facility, and making sure we're keeping it modernized and the air conditionings. And I think we were going to do the exhibit hall after we kind of tore it up a little bit with all the food distribution. We need to go in and take care of that. But it's been a remarkable asset for the city that we were so thankful we had it and could pivot that to use it for so many things. And then, Andrea, quickly, is it okay for us to talk a little bit about the master plan and the community engagement and the proposal to work with Scott Boucher's group?
Sure.
Would you speak to that? I know
Sure.
I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but since you're talking about this, I think this would be a good point to talk about how we're going to work with the climate action plan on this.
Right, so we were initiating this effort to do the comprehensive plan update, and at the same time identified a need to do more outreach for the climate action plan. So within our intent, and now we'll marry both efforts, is to go out and have a whole series of public engagement meetings, opportunities to fill out surveys, where we're going throughout the city. We're targeting underrepresented communities, different groups of users within our park system, and we're expanding that now to also include questions that would help us frame that climate action plan. And so that effort is going to be ongoing, like I said, over the next year, but we'll be including that green initiatives altogether. It was a good partnership to ask both types of questions for climate action plan and where folks are interested in the park system and our recreation offerings, to ask all those types of questions together in the same venue. So lots of outreach efforts coming forward. We have consultants that we're in the middle of selecting now for that, and then we will be putting together meeting schedules, virtual and in person, and engagement efforts out in the park system and out in the neighborhoods, out in every district, to make sure we're able to gather that kind of input on both climate action plan and parks master plan
Just
altogether.
seeing good timing that we have this major initiative, and why not piggyback it with the professionals? It won't be the only outreach for climate action plan, but we just saw an opportunity. The staff came up with this idea of working with Scott's group and adding some more questions, and we're out doing all these community meetings and engagements, that why not also include some of those questions also?
I just want to say amen to the how strategically important the convention center has been the last year. There's a few people in here old enough to remember when Centennial Hall was created back in 1978 to commemorate the centennial of the city of Mesa. And we thought we'd really arrived because we had this big, beautiful Taj Mahal, facility in our downtown. And it has been an interesting, watching it over the years. And I agree, there was some debate as to what's the value? Why do we have this now? And we were very fortunate to have that facility in that location this last year. But, and so I am convinced that we need to not offer this property up for commercial development, or we need to keep it in the hands of the city because during challenging times, it's very strategic. However, I think we do need to be, in between, we need to maybe have a more strategic plan for how can we capitalize on this? Yeah.
I think the challenge, we agree, Mayor, and I think Andrea and her staff are very keen on working that program. I think the challenge has been we weren't able to tell them when it would be available to program. And I think now they're in a position where they can look out, 3 or 4 months and be able to say, okay, now we can accept or receive proposals.
Right, Mayor and Council, we've been talking to regularly Visit Mesa and the area hotels, Delta Hotel, about relaunching what we're offering for programming space at the convention center. And so we have some tentative holds on some of our spaces starting around the end of June. But we're also waiting for the industry to catch up and be ready to have in-person conferences that are to that scale. But they're getting there. And so we're putting bids together now in cooperation with both groups, the hotels and Visit Mesa, to market the space and help drive our bed nights and fill the facility with those types of events as we transition back out of vaccinations and food distribution.
And we need to find a way, Andrea, to get the council over to see all the improvements you've made in that facility. It's pretty remarkable. If you remember the auditorium that had the big desk and everything, it is completely changed, very modern looking facility. So at some point, I guess if you need a private tour, Andrea could give it to you.
Sure.
But it is now a very nice looking facility inside.
Great. I mentioned capital projects that are in the works now. Not on here, but the plaza at Mesa City Center is definitely well underway in construction with the intentions of being able to open the new configuration for the ice rink this coming Merry Main Street season in November. And so we're on track for that. Then we have the post, that's the top picture in the top right, a view of that main floor in there. So that's finishing up design now to get ready to go into construction with the hope of opening that in fall 2022. So that'll be event space really focused on local-based events, programs that can be offered in those large spaces in there. And then there's smaller conference rooms on the second floor and still storage down in the basement for the museum. That operations budget comes online this coming fiscal year in anticipation of finishing just outfitting the space and getting staff ready to open it. We have Monterey Park expansion. That public meeting is coming up here on May 13th. And so that's the addition of a baseball, softball youth quad next to the existing Monterey Park. We're looking at putting the Express Library location in that area as well. I don't have a rendering of it. It's still being developed in anticipation for that May 13th meeting. And then we're replacing the existing playground and adding shade over it.
Mayor, real quickly, I know Councilor Thompson knows about this, but for the rest of the council, if you recall, we had and I guess, Heather, do you want to talk about those library when you come up, or do you want me to talk? Oh, perfect. So more to come. The location of using this park and working with parks and the libraries, we think it's going to be a really cool opportunity, so.
And then that park overall, the quad area is slated to open in winter 2022. This coming summer, July, we'll be starting construction on the North Center Sports Complex. So that's 5 full-size soccer fields just south of the 202 at Center Street, with the hope of opening it by fall of 2022. And then we will have Red Mountain Park expansion that's still in design. We've had a few public meetings related to that. So that adds 4 baseball, softball, youth fields on the north side of Brown next to the existing softball complex, and 10 soccer fields on the south side of Brown just east of the existing park area. And we expect to open that in winter of 2023. And then just a few highlights as we enter into our summer season. This is looking at 3 years of summer programming to give you a sense of how popular our summer programs are, and that even in 2020, those are the red bars there, we're still able to offer services through a few limited summer camps and swim lessons and public swim. Last summer, we're planning to ramp up operations again. We don't expect to be quite as big as we were in 2019 this coming summer, but we're getting close again. And overall, like many service industries, we continue to struggle with hiring staff back in order to offer our full programming. And so we're getting close, but we're still short on staff. And so in terms of aquatics, for example, we'll be rotating some of our programs based on our available staffing. And also we still have a little bit in reduced capacities just to help maintain social distancing in all those programs throughout the summer as we come out of COVID restrictions. We have our adaptive program, Camp Fiesta, is planning to go this coming summer at Stapley Junior High again. We have camp programs, full day and half day scheduled throughout the city. So full days at our rec centers and half days at the school, some of the elementary school sites. Red Mountain Center is open again fully now, special interest classes, the fitness floor, and I know the senior center is also working to relaunch a lot of their programs here in the coming weeks and months. Athletics, we had a huge increase this year. So Mesa was able to keep our fields open. We were able to maintain social distancing and mask requirements and not shut down our athletic complexes. We actually saw a 30% increase in our field usage this March, which is always our busiest month, over March of 2019. So it was a great opportunity to highlight all of our tremendous sports complexes, and a lot of people were able to take advantage of us continuing to be open. We've had quite a few folks interested in the Mesa Public Schools discount that came through for our recreation programs. That was in partnership with the district. They are paying half of the registration fees through their federal COVID funding as they look to enhance enrichment activities for kids in the Mesa Public Schools district. Again, that's a federally funded program, so we've had about 1,700 people sign up for that. Right now, registration for our programs just started on April 12th, but we already have about $70,000 worth of income that'll come in through that grant program for Mesa Public School students in our recreation programs. And overall interest so far has been tremendous. We do already have some full programs just in the past week and a half, and we're continuing to market that. Our camps start the last week of May. Summer swim lessons start up around the same time. Public swim opens up in the last week of May. Our tennis program has been exploding. We've had more court rentals than we've ever had before out there at the Mesa Tennis Center. So those are all really encouraging things to see people getting out and recreating in the outdoors. I am done. I am open to questions.
I saw that the next slide was questions, so that's why I raised my hand. Can you just speak to the aquatic facilities? What is the modified programming in hours? What does that look like?
We're still working through that, Councilmember Spilsbury. So right now, I know for sure Stapley and Shepherd are still going through renovations. The Stapley renovation, it's replastering and replacing that play structure in the shallow water. So that's slated to be finished this week, and they're on track for that. Shepherd is a little bit behind schedule, but we still plan to be able to open it just before, a week before the public swim season starts, so we're cutting it close there. That was replaster the whole pool and replacing the slide. At Shepherd, we're looking at doing fewer days of public swim, probably 3 days a week instead of 6. And doing lessons at other pools, not at that location, lessons in swim teams, because of we're down overall across all of our recreation programs about 60 people. And so that has a big impact on it. We've gone crazy trying to recruit lots of new staff. We have about half of our staff that are coming online new this year and going through training with them, but we will see some reduced opportunities for opening. The other pools, I think, will end up having perhaps fewer rentals open if people want to rent the whole pool, based on having to move staff around in order to cover it, but we're still working through that.
So it's more of a staffing issue right now with programming than COVID regulations or anything?
It's a combination of both, but if we were fully open again, we would not have enough staff.
Okay, so as far as having to, kind of like what you did last summer, just having to make an appointment to go, or, you know, only having an hour and taking breaks, you know, you can only be there for a certain amount of time. Are you doing that kind of stuff
Right, no,
again?
it's more open this year, so you can do reserves times, but we're also leaving some slots open for walk-up. So we're doing a hybrid model of that.
Okay, great. I know that's a question a lot of people spend time at pools. That's how we get through our summers when we have a bunch of little kids. So thank you.
Mr. Luna.
Of course, I have to ask you because Councilmember Spilberry asked about the pools. The multi-generation center, the recreation part of it, do residents still need to make an appointment, or is it going to be open to the public? Can they use the basketball courts? Are they able to take the exercise classes? And tell me a little bit about that.
Sure, Mesa, Mayor, Councilmember Luna, last week we stopped requiring a reserved space for the fitness floor, and so now it's back to walk-up opportunities. We still have the mask requirements inside. Our special interest classes and fitness classes are filling up, and so they're back to the wristbanding system. When people come in and say they want to take a certain class for the fitness classes, we have a certain amount of wristbands that we hand out, and then when those are out, that class is full. But it's not a reserve in advance situation anymore, and that seems to be working well. It sounded like our participants there were interested in making that shift.
But they're required to wear a face mask?
We are still requiring face masks in the buildings, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Freeman.
Hi there. Good morning. Thanks for your presentation. I was just going back to slide 4 when you talked about homeless contacts by the park rangers. And do you have a list of parks that probably are most frequented by homelessness and contacts? I mean, I'm sure that you've probably broken down which parks are which. You know, our parks showcase our city wherever we're at, and we need to keep them safe for the residents and families to use. So I was just wondering which parks would be probably the most attended by park rangers. I don't know how else to say it, or police.
Right, about a third of their time is spent in 5 of our downtown parks. It's Beverly, Evergreen, Kleiman, Pioneer, and Guerrero. And so, while 75% of their time is spent on homelessness concerns throughout the city, those 5 parks definitely are bringing more attention, and we're spending more time there to try to encourage positive, healthy activity in those parks.
Good. And I think that goes back to our previous comments by Councilmember Luna about the cameras and location of them, and help facilitate, you know, just contact and seeing anything going wrong by transitional workers there with PD. And so we need to keep our parks safe is what we need, and not let it get out of control. So I appreciate that. My last question is, yesterday, I don't know why I did, but I was in Councilmember Thompson's district. I drove by.
Did you have your visa?
I know I got carded there, Ellsworth and the 24. But I saw the Legacy Sports Park being built, and I wondered if that will have an impact at all to any of our Parks and Recs program. It's a big facility. I think it's 300 plus acres. And what's your thought? I know this is way preliminary, but
Mayor, Councilmember Freeman, we have had to turn away so much sports use because we have too few of fields throughout the city, that I expect what Legacy is going to do is help our residents be able to have opportunities on fields without taking away from what we already offer. We are continuing, and the 2018 bond program really focused on adding sports fields, especially in Southeast Mesa, but we continue to not be able to meet the full demand that's out there. And we have had a few talks with some of the softball in particular, but just as they schedule tournaments and have opportunities to bring in teams and need overflow space, to be able to talk to them on and book in our sports complexes to support that when we have openings.
They'll probably, I'm assuming, based on what my conversations with them, they will be looking at the large regional and national tournaments that'll come there. We certainly will, be available for those kinds, but at the end of the day, as a municipality, we're trying to serve the local residents who need, and practice fields is a big issue. Not that we don't want the tournaments, and I think we'll get those on a local basis, but just the need to address the everyday kind of practice, local access is a big issue in the community too. I think Legacy, because of the investment and the size, I think their intention is to really go for those very, they're recruiting national and regional tournaments as much as anything. I don't know how much of it would be used for practice fields. I suspect it's more for the tournaments. Is that your impression, Andrea? I don't know if you know that. I don't know.
I don't have that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, I'm just saying that I think keeping our parks safe for our local residents and those sports teams that live in Mesa or the surrounding areas, obviously, if they want to schedule and come into Mesa, we welcome that. But my focus is keeping our parks safe, and I appreciate all you're doing, so thank you.
Thank you, Council. Other questions on this topic? I just want to underline what Ms. Spilsbury said a moment ago. There's lots of families in our community during the summertime, their lives revolve around these programs. So it was really heartbreaking to see that not be something that we could offer last summer to a significant extent like we normally do. So it's just very heartwarming to see the opportunity to try to get back to that. And I know we're still struggling with getting staffing, and it won't be 100%, but it's still very rewarding to see that we're getting back there. And I guess we just need to recruit, keep putting the word out that there's, are a lot of the jobs that we're talking about, are these seasonal, part-time, teenager type positions?
Correct, Mayor. They are seasonal positions, and our pipeline was disrupted last year. So we still had some hiring, but not a whole lot. And so that feeds year to year, especially as we train new kids that become old enough to come work for us. And our teen programs feed into that as well. And last year we weren't able to offer those. This year we are, and they're full already. So that helps us prepare for future hires as we go through that. But this is happening in the service industry. I think we see newspaper articles regularly about that same age group, just needing more people to be interested in working again, being willing to be out there in public settings, doing those types of jobs. And even across the valley, all of cities are experiencing that same kind of push and pull.
Well, hopefully the word will get out and we'll get some more teenagers to sign up for a good summer job and help us flesh out these programs. Thanks again. Great job, great presentation. If there's no further questions, next on our agenda is Development Services. Is that who you'd like to do next, Mr. Brady?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Good morning, Council. My name is Christine Zalanka. I'm the Development Services Department Director. I have a couple of my management team members here today. I think you know Nana, certainly, who oversees our planning area. John Sheffer is our building official and a Deputy Department Director, and Chase Carlisle is our fiscal analyst and oversees our administrative areas. So be a kind of a team effort today. The development services, our core function is really working with the city and development community to assist in building a healthy and sustainable community. Our core service areas, as you know, the planning and zoning under NANA. John Sheffer heads up the building plan review and permitting, and then the inspections process also. Quick overview of our revenues this past year. 1 year ago, there was a lot of uncertainty as to what development was going to look like here locally and across the country. We, quite frankly, have been very surprised. There was a quick dip in March of last year, but development activity has continued at really higher levels than we've seen in a very long time. Just to review quickly, in fiscal year 1920, our actual revenues were $13.7 million. Our adopted budget for last year, 2021, was $12.1 million. Our actual revenues were $15 million. So we were $3 million above projected revenues during the pandemic. That speaks a lot to the flexibility of the department. We, as you all know, in 4 days moved to a totally remote format, everybody working from home. But because of our electronic permitting systems, and I know we've got some challenges with that we're working on, but it allowed us to really continue to meet our customer demands, and we really didn't miss a beat. To give you a little bit more detail on what that development looks like, and I'm glad I didn't go last week because the mayor actually made most of my presentation during the State of the City. And he talked about a lot of the big projects that we've seen going up across the entire city and all districts. The planning cases that we have seen, again, you see that sort of just a bit of a dip there in March, but then continuing as you see the rezoning and the annexation cases that are coming through council. Just a couple of them that have been through the planning phases over the last year and are now coming out of the ground. You were just talking about Legacy down in District 6, just Destination at Gateway. A lot of industrial activity down around the Gateway Airport, which is wonderful. Continue to see a lot of residential development in both Southeast and Northeast Mesa, but are seeing development really across all of the districts and even some exciting redevelopment in the center areas of the city. One of our really production areas is building permits. And if you see here, and this is John's area, we continue to see very high levels of single-family residential development. But what's been encouraging and really great is this consistent trend on commercial and industrial development. If you look across the city, we have a lot of industrial activity down on the landings, phase 2 and 3 along Pecos Road. In District 5, we've got some really exciting expansion of our industrial partners up there with Boeing. SDI is, if you drive down the 202, you see a great new building going up there. So a lot of industrial development, which continues to stay very strong. Because of the very strong development activity and the fact that we have been very conservative in staffing levels for a very long time, we are asking for a couple of budget enhancements. We've been working with the city manager's office for mid-year adjustments, simply to keep up with the customer demand. We've asked for one senior building plans examiner and an additional senior planner to help with both the preliminary entitlement side and then also the permitting. The 2021 enhancements that we're requesting is an additional building inspector. That's one area where John's staff has continued to just every day, we've got inspectors out there conducting up to 20 inspections per inspector per day, which is a lot of inspections. So we're asking for an additional inspector to help with that workload. The one-time cost there, vehicle and computer We're also asking for an additional shared resource vehicle for the department. We have folks that simply we don't have a city vehicle, and they're taking their own private cars out to construction sites. We don't have a vehicle for our small business assistants, so we're asking for that as an enhancement. One of the topics that we talk about every year is our use of temporary services to meet the customer demand. You'll see quite a significant drop-off this last year in temporary workers, and this is the consistent story that Andrea was just talking about, how difficult it is to find people. We have always relied on temporary workers to help, primarily in the building inspections area, because of construction activity across the area. There simply aren't people out there. We continue to work to try to find those folks, but we use temporary services to really meet the customer demand between our permanent staffing, and then we can bring temp workers on when we need them. Quite frankly, that's been a very consistent demand for several years, and we have consistently been utilizing temporary workers to meet the demand.
Before you go too much further, can I jump in and ask a question real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I was talking with Patrick Banger and Gilbert a few weeks ago, and they're doing a hybrid type of inspection using, I guess, a virtual program or something. Have we looked at that or looked at what Gilbert's doing? Because they're telling me that they're able to do a lot more of the inspections to stay on top of them.
You actually jumped ahead a couple of slides, but I'll talk about it now. Yes.
Sorry.
John actually has been working with pretty much a startup company on doing virtual inspections. And so we started this 7-8 months ago at least, where we have our building inspectors work with, and it's primarily been the residential areas where we have not wanted to have our staff go into homes. People don't want us to go in. We've seen a lot of home improvement. We've all seen those stories. So John has a program. It's very easy to use. It's basically all you need is a smartphone. The customer, the resident can take a picture of what they've done, send it to the inspector, and we have been conducting those virtual inspections. So yes, I'm sure we're doing a much better job than Gilbert is, but we'll certainly be happy to talk to them. Going back to just our expenditures, really that it's a pretty straight line story here with the addition of the 3 enhancements that we talked about. Just to give you a little bit more information on the types of submissions, and I know that you've seen this information, but if you look at the first quarter 2021 numbers there, you can just see the activity level, and it's really spread across residential, industrial. We've got a lot of work coming in through Nana's area. We always use that as the leading indicator of what's going to hit our building plan review and building inspectors. So we continue to see very high activity levels, both at the initial entitlement phase and then all the way through inspections. It's kind of the same story here on construction permit applications, very strong continued activity level. We currently have, I think about 400 building plans in the queue that are waiting to be reviewed and permitted. To get to Councilmember Thompson's point on innovations here, one of the virtual enhancements that we've seen, public participation. We've had a few very successful virtual meetings using Zoom or other formats that have actually increased our residents' ability to, hop on a call. We had a historic preservation meeting several months ago, saw greater participation than we had ever seen. It was so easy for people to hop on a Zoom meeting for an hour and 10 minutes. So many people have gotten very comfortable, being a little square on a box, had a great discussion with our historic preservation staff and some of our residents that are just passionate about that topic. So it was really fun to see the level of activity. I think going forward, we'll continue to, as you're doing kind of a hybrid approach, a lot of people really appreciate having those virtual meetings and reducing the drive time, but certainly there's a huge value in being in person. So we'll continue to work and see what the best mix is there. On innovations in the planning area, Nana has been in front of you just within the last month or so talking about his continual work with his staff and updating the zoning code. We're continuing to identify enhancements that we can do a better job of managing our zoning code and working with our development community. And then the big project that's coming up, and I think we've talked a little bit about it, is the general plan update that by state law has to go to the voters in 2024. We're beginning to start planning for that, and you'll start seeing activity coming up next year from a budgeting. We've already held an initial meeting with all of the other departments that have master plans, so those will all be integrated. Parks, transportation, certainly working with environmental and sustainability to make sure that that general plan captures all of those various areas. Streamline permitting and inspection process. We already talked about our virtual inspections. We're looking to continue to enhance that as the development community is ready to do that. Councilmember Heredia last week brought up some ideas for us to continue to streamline the user interface with our DIMES, which is our electronic permitting system. We know that that's challenging, and we know it's a bit clunky and cumbersome. We have had a project, we've got an outside third-party implementer on our DIMES system that we've got, I don't know, we've probably got 50 tasks on that list at least of enhancements that we want to see on DIMES, but certainly that upfront user interface is one of the areas that we're really working hard on. A couple of the other programs that you've seen over this last year, the Mesa Al Fresco, the expansion of restaurant premises, their patios, and the Mesa Open Air. Both programs have been highly successful and just really positive feedback from our restaurants on how helpful that's been to allow outdoor use of those facilities. One of the other areas that we're trying to just continue to be on the forefront of technology, and I'm sure IT has talked to you about it, our chatbot, the virtual assistant, continuing to work to try to train our computers to answer questions, just to have another avenue for people to get questions asked, where they can do it on the website. They can certainly talk to people, but there are some folks that are just real comfortable if they've got a question using that artificial intelligence and continuing to enhance that. Yeah.
Vice Mayor.
Christine, I have a question on the Mesa Open Air. Is there a time then that program will cease? A lot of our restaurants, especially in the downtown area, has taken advantage of that program. It's been a wonderful addition to the restaurants. Is that going to continue, or is that going to terminate at a point that we feel that we're back to normal in their business after COVID?
I'll give you just my personal opinion. I think that it's been a great program, and there are businesses that have really benefited from it. We've talked about it, and what I would love to see is us trying to help those businesses that like it to have a more permanent patio presence. A lot of it has been pretty temporary, but if we can work with those businesses that want to continue to have those outdoor spaces, I would love for us to find a way to make that happen.
So transition into applying for a more permanent permit instead of just the temporary one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, because right now I think we passed it by resolution, and that resolution says when the mayor's emergency proclamation is, the end of the pandemic, that it would end. But we could bring back, if there's interest in the council, we could bring back something in the ordinance, in the code, to make it, make it permanent and have it a program that's more available long term.
We need to look at, because it was pretty broad.
Right.
About parking. So I think the one, like Christine's saying, the ones that we actually worked on, I think most of those, we think there's a way to create a longer term.
Yeah, they've been working really well. As we talked about the traffic safety, occupant safety, so making sure that the parking areas are separated from where people are sitting. And again, we see just canopies and tents and temporary tables, but if we have businesses that would like to come forward through the permitting process, we're hoping that we can find a way to help facilitate that.
Yeah, and even, I don't know if it'd even be possible that, like, the spring here in Mesa is very, very busy, given that we go back to the spring training tourists and stuff like that, to even, for those who are having more just the canopy or temporary, I don't know. To have some seasonal expansion, and they may not want to maintain it year-round.
Well, let us look at it, because that's a great idea. I think that's worth looking at.
Yeah, definitely. Any other questions?
I got one for you.
Yes, sir.
Why don't we use the Post as during the summer, use the Post as a additional area where restaurants could send their food over there and people could eat in the Post?
Well, other than it's under construction, there might be.
Well, once it's done, I mean, it's what I saw from the picture is going to be wide open space. So whether we can do that or not,
Yeah, no,
I'm just brainstorming.
I think it's great. I think we did learn, though, when we created that eating area on, McDonald's. Yeah, I think for a restaurant, the logistics of having it nearby is important, but everything's open. I mean, I think I think we've shown we want to work with businesses to make them successful, and having outdoor seating. And if we can do that, I think it's just the issues about right-of-way and parking and pedestrian access. But I think there's a lot of opportunity to help some of these, whether it's seasonal or permanent. Let us look at it. I think the way the language of the resolution was pretty broad, that it kind of allowed us to kind of put aside parking requirements and other things like that. I don't know if we want to go that far permanently, but certainly, I think most of the ones that did it, we look at them today and go, why wouldn't they continue doing it that way? So.
Well, when it's 115 degrees.
Well, I mean, not then.
But yeah, I get it. So
Well,
just an idea. Thanks.
Just one comment about the Post. The beauty of it is that on the frontage of it, it will spill out into that area on McDonald that we use for the al fresco. So for events and that we have going on the Post, whatever we want, is a great programming area indoors and out. Look forward to things we can do there.
I know we have other comments here, but just to facilitate this conversation a little bit, can you define, let's define Mesa Open Air and Mesa Al Fresco. Mesa Al Fresco is the temporary program where we allowed for expanded seating outside. And I was thinking Mesa Open Air was kind of the McDonald's seating area, but so, but please
It was really tied to federal funding, where we were able to use the CARES funding to actually provide assistance to the restaurants. We started with the Mesa Al Fresco very quickly. If you remember, we did that last year. And then as the CARES money got a little more comfortable with the city manager's direction, we're able to expand to the Mesa Open Air and provide actual assistance to businesses.
Okay. All right.
Right, so it was both, we started with restaurants, right,
Yes,
Christine?
right.
And then we expanded it to, I can't remember what all the other categories
Well, we
were.
had anticipated things like gyms and fitness
Right.
centers. Quite frankly, I don't think there were very many of those types of business that really participated. The focus and the interest really wasn't from the restaurant industry.
Okay.
But I think what we all agree on is, let us look at the success of the program and see where we can make that ongoing
Yeah.
beyond where we are today, so.
Yeah, I agree that there's an appetite for more outdoor, incorporating outdoors more into our businesses, but also the location on McDonald where we kind of had a placemaking, experience for the local restaurants. I thought that was successful as well, and so given the momentum in downtown, I think we do need to look, and I know the park next to the ASU facility is going to hopefully be a new, exciting place for gathering downtown, but I'm not sure that's going to check the box entirely for the need for more placemaking in downtown. So.
And we certainly work very closely with the Office of Downtown Transformation with Mr. McVeigh and his staff when evaluating those kinds of ideas and helping him to figure out how to make it happen.
Great.
I just want to make one comment on that. As far as economics, when there is activity on the outside of a business or along the streets, it really attracts more people. So it is an economic driver when people are going by or considering where to go, or there's a life and a gathering, even though with our COVID restrictions. So beyond the convenience of the restaurant being able to expand their business and have that amenity, it is beneficial for our community in general economically, as people want to be where people are.
Right, and that's actually one of the major areas that NANA works on. One of the sort of the core missions of planning is that whole placemaking, and that varies across the city, but it's something that's absolutely considered when we've got an activity coming in, how that can help that local community.
I know Mr. Reddy has a question.
On the submissions by quarter slide, is there, I know over the last several years, there's been an attempt to kind of streamline processes and get things in a much quicker, but still reviewed process. Has that taken any? Have you seen any effects on like streamlining or having cases not lag over time? I know that's been an issue with development community or folks that are submitting these requests. Just the amount of time it takes to get cases finalized. So have we seen any improvements, or are things taking longer? Any effects to that?
Just a couple comments on that. One of the major improvements that we did was combining the subdivision technical review process. We actually eliminated an entire meeting, which pretty much sliced off a month to two on getting the entitlements through the process. We do have an expedited process for permitting, and we continue to be surprised how many companies are willing to pay for 2 times or even 3 times the permit fee because they want to jump ahead of everybody else and get at the beginning of the line. Part of what we do at the very beginning of the planning process, particularly when it's a project that comes forward and they really have a huge need to get moving quickly. The Legacy is a great example of that, where they really wanted to move quickly. So we spent a lot of time with them figuring out what they needed and then how we could modify our processes to make sure that we met their requirements. It still takes a while. There are legal requirements, public notice requirements, particularly in Nana's area, where there's a limit to how much time we can shave off. But when it comes to actually plan review and inspections, we actually do amazing things to get projects.
Councilor, I think once we receive the plans and we're working on the plans, I think staff does a good job of processing it. What the complaints that we all hear still is more a factor of demand. That's why you see us adding the additional staff. It's just that the amount of work that's coming in the door continues and the pressure to get those done. And what happens is we're busy working on the ones in front of us and more keeps coming in the door. So I think once the staff's working on it, it moves in accordance with the standards we set. It's the ones that are kind of pending that keep showing up. And I think that's why you see us asking for more staffing to help with that. And I don't know if that's anything else you want to add.
Mayor, Council, one of the things I will add, if you recollect last year, one of the major text amendments that the council approved was to allow administrative review of certain number of site plans. So typically those site plans would have gone to Planning and Zoning Board. That has reduced about 60 days out of the process. And we've seen several projects that have large industrial buildings that have come in and has been able to receive their entitlements within 45 days instead of 90 or 120 days. So that has been a drastic change. In addition, some of the code amendments you've also approved, example, the design guidelines has really helped reduce the process of going back and forth. So now there is absolute clarity on the requirements. That has really reduced the design review process as well. So those are all the changes that has streamlined the process.
Is there further recommendations coming up as far as, is there additional tools that as ordinances that we can
I
do
think
to
we've
change?
just approved so many new ones. I think we're trying to see
What happens.
see how those are working. I think at this point, our recommendation is we need to add some more staff. We just need more bodies to review some of these plans and process it. The demand is unprecedented right now in the industrial and manufacturing side. Residential's kind of, I would say, not dropping, it's just leveled off.
It is a pretty level, but still at high levels.
But the biggest push right now is on the non-residential, the commercial industrial. And everybody just, it's a race to get open. And so we're trying to help facilitate that. We've already granted additional positions this year to go ahead, just because the demand was so great and recognizing the revenues were going to come in to cover it. So I think if we'll continue to move through the changes that we've made in the processing and adding additional staff, we hope to get there. We'll never be as fast as development wants us to be, but I think we're going to do our best to get there.
And just to add, I echo any change to the public interface of dimes or those types of interfaces that we ask the public to pay their fees or look up for documents. I would strongly recommend.
We agree. We agree.
Just a comment, we're going to have city center, and now we've adjusted our ordinance for food carts, so now we can have some food carts and hopefully eat in that area, so that's going to be real exciting. As you know, District 5 is pretty rugged. When you look at your vehicle, we're hoping you're getting a vehicle that can drive safely on that terrain. I drove over in Ghost Riders, as you can imagine, and I thought I was going to get stuck and die, and we certainly can't go in your vehicle.
No, we cannot go in my vehicle.
So when you're looking at a vehicle, make sure it's rugged enough to get into.
When Christine went up there, I got, what kind of?
We're going to get a small pickup, but as cheap as we can find.
We had what did we drive in? We went up there in a SUV.
Oh, yeah, we had a Tahoe, I think, of some kind, yeah.
So yes, we agree. It can't be a sedan.
No, it can't be a sedan. I just want to make sure that whoever's driving out there is safe to get out of those.
Right, actually, we talked a lot about that because even our small business assistant, she ends up on construction sites sometimes. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, we need something to get into those areas. And we can't use our personal vehicles. We need something that's rugged enough to get there.
Right.
So, thank you for that consideration.
Yes, I just want to give a little love to a lot of people. It's been tremendous, the amount of development that's been going on, especially during COVID. And I must say, and your entire team from Historic Preservation, Ariana and Heather working in small business, and all the changes that's been made with Nana's leadership in processing and being more efficient. I know in my district, and especially the downtown, we've seen more businesses open during COVID than any other time. But through the innovations and the leadership and the people that you have done a tremendous job. So I want to say thank you, and I think we're making great strides and look forward to making many more as we look at the 2040 plan and making revisions. While I'm on that, I also want to put a shout out to the Downtown Transformation team, the Jeffs and Angelica and the whole team, and doing remarkable things. And Nancy Horman of the DMA, the Downtown Mesa Association. Since she's come on, we've been able to do some great things for downtown, which is part of the success, especially during COVID. So I couldn't say enough good things at a time that was so critical for our city. So thank you to all.
Thank you. We've got a great team. I think Councilmember Thompson did.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. I want to just echo Councilmember Duff's sentiments as well. You have an amazing staff, and I don't want to skip over slide 9. Going back and looking at slide 9, I mean, that's a telling story when you start looking at the number of permits that have come through and applications for submittal. During the pandemic, I think there was a pumping of the brakes, the proverbial pumping of the brakes. But when you look at this graph, you don't really see it until about the third quarter of 2020. And that's really when it started impacting us in Mesa. But if you look at the first quarter of 2021, we are leaps and bounds further than we were first quarter of 2019. And 2019 was a gangbuster year for the city of Mesa. And so the fact that you and your staff have been able to keep up and stay on top of things with the amount of work coming in is amazing, and it speaks volumes for your department and your leadership. So Christine, so thank you for all you do, and thank you your staff for their tremendous efforts.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our Planning and Zoning Board, who has now transitioned in doing their reviews twice a month. It used to be a once-a-month thing, and so I'd have to also commend them for their great work and being able to do the work quickly. Thank you.
They've been very busy and will continue to be.
Well, thank you. I'll just join the chorus. That the fact that you're doing more than you ever have, but doing it with an arm or two tied behind your back because of the pandemic has just been amazing to watch. So thank you for the way you've responded to the unprecedented needs and during times of unprecedented challenges.
Thank you.
Appreciate your good work. Thank you, Council. If there's no other questions for these folks, we'll move on to the last department that we're going to hear from today. That's the Library Services budget. Heather, I know we're all excited to learn more about the lovely table settings that you've given us this morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. So I'm Heather Wolf, Library Director, and this is Tony Garvey, the Library's Management Assistant too. And yes, we knew you were going to have a long morning, and so we wanted to add a little bright spot to your morning. So we've provided you with limited edition gifts. These are promoting our Seed Library, which is once again available now that we are reopened. So I hope you enjoy them. So we're going to jump right into the budget. With our year-end actuals for 1920, we show a $6.8 million budget. That reflects the budget reductions that were enacted in response to COVID and the closures. This included freezing a large number of vacant positions, the RIF of 17 employees, and halting our security and navigator contracts, as well as reducing our materials purchases to digital format only. Moving to our revised budget for fiscal year 2021, the budget includes the reductions that were continued through the end of 2020. And just so you know, the budget would have been $8.1 million, but we had $400,000 in reductions this fiscal year, the majority of which were the one-time personnel savings. As we project out to the end of this fiscal year, we expect to save an additional $200,000. While we have rehired all of the staff who wish to be reinstated after the RIF, we are still carrying a number of vacancies. Similar to Parks and Rec, it's a combination of being careful and staffing up based on workload, but we are also finding it challenging to recruit and hire staff. The salary savings from these vacant positions has more than offset the January, 3% step increase and the bonus pay. And then that brings us to our last column, so fiscal year 21-22's proposed budget. At first, this seems like a very large increase over our year-end estimate, but it's actually just a difference of $400,000 between the adopted fiscal 2021 $8 million budget. And this increase is due to the increase in salaries. So I'd just like to say thank you to council for those increases. It meant a lot to staff, so thank you. Moving on. Just wanted to review last fiscal year. As you know, on March 16th, the city staff were called together and notified that the city facilities would be closing and employees were to go home. At the library, supervisors decided which of our services to continue during the closures. We kept our book returns open, for example. We extended due dates, we extended expiration dates on cards, changed our messages on our phones, updated the website, and we thought we'd be back after about 2 weeks. Of course, at the end of March, our world changed, and that's when we realized that we would be closed long-term, and that budget reductions and layoffs were likely. On April 1st, we received word that the library would be responsible for operating the Mesa Cares call center at the same time that we heard news of the death of one of our own. That day is still one of the most surreal days of my life as we struggled to comprehend the loss of a very well-respected team member who was a mentor and friend to many of our staff. And at the same time, we had to create a call center from nothing to connect our residents to resources that had yet to be created. So it was an amazing time. And then shortly after, our team did lose 17 members due to the city's reduction in workforce. But our library staff is amazing. They rallied, and together they have overcome every challenge we've thrown their way this past year, and they are willing to serve our community in any way that we will let them. So in addition to running the call center from home, which included helping economic development with both the Small Business Reemergence Program and the Technical Assistance Program, we still had to take care of our library users. So programming went online, as did the library card registration program almost immediately. And I just want to highlight online library card registration. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal. We did it as a customer service response to the closures, but in the end, it actually has gained us some additional dollars. Not everyone knows this, but the Maricopa County Library District, we participate in the reciprocal borrowing program through the Maricopa County Library District. And by allowing any resident of Maricopa County to use our libraries, we have access to money to spend on materials. Because our formula that is used to disperse those funds to the municipal libraries includes number of cards issued, we actually anticipated that number to go down. But because we turned around and put online card registration out there almost immediately, we did not see the dip in online cards issued that our neighboring libraries did see. So we will see a $13,000 increase to our budget for next year, bringing our total to $372,000. And this is amazing when you realize that Gilbert and Chandler, which are our nearest neighbors, both saw decreases. So I would just like to say it pays to be innovative. So thank you to Brandon Williams, our staff member, who highlighted that program for us. Other innovations quickly followed. In May, we started our curbside delivery program. In September, the main library also piloted our limited lobby service. In October, we added take and make kits and offered our first drive-by story time with Halloween Boo. And thank you to Councilmember Freeman for participating in our Not So Polar Express in December. Thanks to our wonderful staff, we were able to do all of this while still sustaining the call center through the end of December. So that gets us into the latter half of this fiscal year. So by mid-January, we were able to reopen all 3 of our locations with limited hours and limited capacity. And in order to do this safely, the city outfitted all service desks with safety shields, and the main library and Red Mountain locations with ionizers to purify the air. New automatic doors were installed at our Dobson Library, and the library also allocated money towards new self-checkout machines that allow more transactions to happen at the kiosk, so no longer requiring staff assistance. In addition, we implemented the Open Plus system at the Dobson and Red Mountain libraries. The system has been used in Europe for about 10 years and very recently in North America. It allows patrons to use the library during non-staffed hours in order to extend access. The vendor Biblioteca added new functionality to Open Plus in response to the pandemic, and Mesa is the first library in the world to use it this way. We're getting to know the people in Denmark very well. So the new capacity counting feature allows us to control the number of people in the building. Doors automatically lock when building capacity is reached and unlock when visitors leave. In this way, we can limit capacity and keep our visitors and staff safe. As you know, public libraries are an important component in a community's ability to bridge the digital divide. Early in 2020, we worked with IT to expand our Wi-Fi access to our parking lots, but many of our residents need access to a computer. Because we can safely open our buildings with these improvements, we've been able to provide over 3,500 hours of public computer use since January 19th, when we opened with limited hours. And this is despite reducing the number of computers on the floor considerably in order to allow for social distancing. Because we are the first to use OpenPlus technology in this way, IT worked with us to nominate the project for a Smart 50 award, which is part of the Smart Cities Connect initiative. And we created a video for that award. It's just 45 seconds, and I thought it would do a better job than I explaining how it works. So Tony's gonna start that up. There's really cool music, but I am not going to hum. Is Brandon. Right. Anyways, thank you for indulging us on that. So looking ahead to next fiscal year, we have strategically allocated our existing budget to support council's priorities and initiatives. There are a lot of activities on the next two slides, so I'll highlight just a few, but I'm happy to answer any questions. So the first one, though, the Dobson branch was the only location without a security officer. Now that we have found the funds to hire that position, this person can make regular rounds of the building grounds, which is allowing us to provide some supplemental support to our park rangers because they can keep an eye on the restrooms and the playground, which are right next to the library. I'm also very excited to announce that Arizona at Work, the Maricopa County Workforce Services Program, which is currently located in the main library's basement. They are back in business, and they are expanding their service audience. So currently, they had provided case management activities for youth ages 14 through 24, helping them find employment. They are now able to provide those same services to adults, dislocated workers, and veterans. So our site will be now open to all ages. And just so you know, this includes developing work readiness skills, funding for occupational skills training, interview skills, resumes, and job searching. So it's a great program, and we're thrilled that they are able to expand the service at this time. It's much needed. We also, as I mentioned, expanded both the reach and hours of the library's Wi-Fi to our parking lots while we were closed. As we have reopened, we will continue to offer that service. We recognize that our hours are not sufficient yet to provide Wi-Fi access the many hours that our community does need it. Also, as a result of the time that we spent in the call center, our staff are much more knowledgeable about the resources available to the small business community, and we are excited to partner with economic development to bring additional programs and training opportunities to the libraries once we reopen, and also I appreciate very much that Jay O'Donnell highlighted the ThinkSpot locations. When we reopen, those will also be available for workspace, and I want to make sure our community knows about those spaces. Another service that we look forward to bringing back when we reopen more fully is the Navigator at the main library. Our visitors who are experiencing homelessness really benefited from this service when we were able to offer it prior. A number of folks were connected to services, and we look forward to doing that again. And this person can also go to the Red Mountain and Dobson locations as needed. So it's been a great benefit, and we look forward to having it again. Over the last year, we were able to leverage our already robust online services and serve more people by increasing our digital collection. We spent more on it. We offered virtual programs, and again, we provided online registration for library cards. But virtual serves just a portion of our users. This year, our staff committed to finding innovative ways to offer traditional library services while still keeping the public and staff safe. And one of those innovations was our curbside delivery service, which we call Park and Pickup. And due to the popularity of this service, we were able to check out almost 150,000 items since May, just by people pulling up to the library and letting us know they were there, and then we would run out with their books. We will continue the service. We're going to move to by appointment. We've already implemented an app. It's called My Libro. It's available on both Google Play and at the App Store. And it allows you to search our collection, place holds, schedule pickup times when your holds come in, learn about library events. You can use voice control. You can connect it to your Alexa if you so desire. And we are also using the app to schedule appointments in the Mesa Room at the main library. And when the ThinkSpots open, we will be using the app to schedule time in the ThinkSpots as well. So it's a very versatile app. Want to talk a little bit about our performance measures. This chart very clearly shows the impact of the pandemic. We have our circulation numbers going back to January 2018. Our blue bar is the physical, or sometimes we call it hard copy circulation, while the green bar is the electronic or digital circulation. So looking at this, March 2020, of course, shows a dip in both of our physical and electronic circulation numbers. April, we had no physical circulation. Everything was digital. But as you can see, beginning in May, once the Park and Pickup delivery service started up, we were able to start getting physical materials out the door once again. Then in January 19, you see it jumps considerably. That's when we were able to open the 3 libraries. And you can see our users love to borrow physical items. And once we opened up, they were back. And we loved seeing them. So by February, our monthly physical circulation has surpassed the digital circulation once again. And that's the first time since COVID began. March 2021, so just last month, we had the highest total circulation for the library in a year. Just so you know, that number was just under 170,000 items circulated. However, we are paying attention to our electronic circulation number. You can see, or at least we can see, that it's not going away, even as we're opening up the libraries, even as we're circulating more physical materials. The electronic circulation is staying stronger than it was pre-COVID. We're seeing month to month, if you look at April, for example, compared March of 2021 to March of 2022, 20. I'll get it out, I'm sorry. You'll see that we have an increase of anywhere from 10 to 15,000 items per month going out the door through our digital collection. So we will continue to invest in that collection because obviously people have found it as a part of the response to the pandemic, and we want to make sure they continue to love it. So last graph, the blue represents the visitors to Dobson, green is to Maine, and red is Red Mountain. So our in-house visitors have been increasing each month since we reopened. We started January with about just under 6,200 people coming through the doors total. In February, that number jumped to just under 15,000. And in March, we were just under 19,000. And this is really amazing when you consider that, as you saw from the video, Dobson is limited to 20 people at a time. And we have limited hours as well. So people are coming in and conducting their business and then allowing others to come in after them. So we're getting a lot of people through the doors in a very small amount of time. We expect this to increase further, especially as we are able to increase capacity and hours.
Heather, before you move on, is it normal that you have more visitors at the Red Mountain Library than the main library? I didn't
They're
realize that.
usually close to each other. So yes, that's been interesting that our main library visitors are not returning at the same pace that our Red Mountain Library visitors are. So yes, we're watching that. But we also have the construction at Maine.
Okay.
And speaking of, the 2018 voter-approved bond projects are underway with the Maine Library's children's room currently under construction. We are expecting, fingers crossed, toes crossed, that we will complete it in August of 2021. And we are looking forward to starting the Dobson Ranch ThinkSpot edition. It is currently in the very last stages of design, and hopefully if we can get that finished up and everything approved, we'll have a completion date of February 2022. And we are very much looking forward to welcoming the community to those new spaces. This slide is our Mesa Express Library slide. Andrea was able to talk briefly about the Monterey Park expansion, and I want to thank our teammates over at Parks Rec and Community Facilities for inviting the library to participate in that project. We are going to be opening a tiny library in a shipping container, and through the efforts of Mr. Brady and Councilmember Thompson, actually it'll be 2 shipping containers. So we'll double the square footage that we'll have for that express library. Savings in the fiscal year 2021 have allowed us to transfer $350,000 to that project. That helps fund the initial phases. As we move forward, we'll have a better idea of what the total project cost will be, but right now that's what we have allotted. Then, of course, we have another photo-approved project to update council on. And as a quick reminder, this will be a full-service, 30,000 square foot library. It'll be bordering the Great Park in East Park. And about 2 weeks ago, we had the project kickoff meeting, and it was exciting, very exciting. I can't tell you how exciting, to speak with our engineering staff about this project and to know that we're officially starting it. We will be going through the design phase this next fiscal year. Construction hopefully beginning fiscal year 2023, and grand opening, I'm gonna just throw it out there, July 1st, 2024. So, I don't know. So in closing, I'd really like to express my gratitude to those who helped the library this last year. Fire and medical services peer support were wonderful. They helped our staff deal with the loss of a coworker. Innovation and technology staff were amazing. They helped us get that call center off the ground when we didn't have a clue. And then they continue to support us during all of our growing pains while we sustained the CARES call center. Mesa Cares created huge opportunities to work with staff from other departments in a way that the library doesn't normally get to do. We worked with community services, customer service, downtown transformation, economic development, and of course, parks, recreation, and community facilities. I knew that Mesa City staff were the best, but watching these diverse departments come together, it was just inspirational to see how everyone worked to help our community when it was in need. I want to thank city management, especially Chris Brady, Natalie Lewis, and Carrie Kent. Not that she's watching right now, but anyways, I did want to express my gratitude to them and to council for believing in library staff and allowing us the opportunity to serve on the Mesa Cares call center. And finally, I want to thank our amazing staff at the library. They truly can do anything you ask them to do, and they will come up with things that you never thought to ask them to do and do it. This last year has been the most challenging and also the most, it's been the highlight of my career. So I just want to thank you. And that's it.
All got, excuse me, thank you, Heather. We talk about the library a lot. You're the first example that I think we use when we talk about how city staff pivoted in just a matter of days in response to the pandemic, and how you went from being librarians to being community aid into people. So it was not what you were hired to do, but we really appreciate the way that you allowed us to change your job description so dramatically, and the way you responded to the needs of the community. And it's wonderful to see you coming back so strong. So thank you for the great work that you and your staff have done. Council, Vice Mayor.
I'd like to chime in on that as well. You know, a library is usually kind of a family, kind of a quiet part of what we do as a city is kind of serene, but you guys have just like jumped to the forefront and been innovative and been the interface between the city and the public and getting the assistance they needed during the CARES program. I'm sure the CARES program wouldn't have been as successful if we didn't have a team as yours in there transitioning so quickly, so innovatively to make it a success. So thank you to you and your entire team. It's amazing how you've been able. I wish all businesses were able to, you know, transform in such a crisis and be able to serve the community so quickly. It's quite amazing. And I just wondering, I know you depend on volunteers, and with the pandemic, you know, that went away. Have they been able to retain, or are they coming back now in order to serve the libraries?
Mayor, Vice Mayor Duff. So we did maintain a small core of volunteers to continue our homebound program and provide materials to those of our folks who couldn't even leave their home. So that group sustained, and then we also had a small core group that continued our online book sales, but we are starting to grow that a little bit, and we are carefully bringing our volunteers back, probably not as fast as they would like us to. They are so ready to come back, and they have been incredibly supportive of staff, sending thank you notes and just cheering us on during this. It's truly been a wonderful thing. And I hope, I know council knows, but I just want to take this opportunity to let the public know about the volunteer walk of fame that is around our downtown area, and the stars that represent all of the volunteers throughout the city. If I remember correctly, each star recognizes so many, I can't remember quite the,
There's like a
8,000. Yeah,
so
think of it in the end, there's over 9,000 volunteers represented by those stars. So our volunteers are amazing. We could not do it without them.
Right. And then last question, the Arizona at Work in the basement of the main library, do people need to make an appointment to access that, or can they drop in?
So right now, they are trying to do things by appointment, but you can drop in and then get appointments if they don't have capacity. If they have capacity and can let you in, they will.
Yeah, we have a lot of people who maybe have lost their job or in transitioning or maybe graduate. Anyway, there's a large job market out there and trying to match them up, so that'd be a great opportunity. Thank you.
Council, any other questions for Heather about the library? All right, Heather, thanks again. Please express our appreciation to your staff and volunteers for the great and very flexible way that you've responded to this and the way you've responded to the challenges that have been in front of you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Council, next item on our agenda is item 3, current event summary, including meetings and conferences attended. Who would like to begin? Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I'll mention that yesterday I was at the Mesa Convention Center helping with the vaccine distribution. And I wanted to let everybody know that walk-ins are now welcome at the convention center. They have Moderna and Johnson & Johnson vaccines. So that is going on, and I encourage everybody to get your neighbors, everybody you know, if they haven't been vaccinated, please encourage them to come and get the vaccine so we can get to that herd immunity and get back to as normal as possible in our activities. And then I'll mention on Monday that I attended a National League of Cities Large Cities Council on our infrastructure priorities and talk to other large cities and what they're putting forth on the new infrastructure bill through Congress, what our priorities are. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Council, other activities you'd like to discuss? All right, Mr. Brady, what does our schedule of future meetings look like?
Thank you, Mayor. We have our final 2 in-person budget presentations on Monday, May 3rd, prior to the council meeting, so we'll hear from municipal courts and code compliance. There were 3 departments that we had scheduled during this time, but just because we ran out of time, they won't be making their presentations in person, but we will be making available the presentations that they had put together, and then if council has any questions regarding those, please feel free to call me or the department director. So we'll be providing that information to you. And that will conclude Monday, I would say, that those will be the final 2 presentations by departments to the council, unless there's some others you want. And and then of course the 3 that will be the Mesa Arts Center, Falcon Field, and our Department of Information Technology will be providing those presentations to you to review, and then if you have any questions. And then on Thursday, May 6th, we talked a little bit about this last week about the all the CDBG ESG dollars that are coming to the city and getting some work. We need to continue that conversation about how those dollars will be allocated. That'll be on Thursday, May 6th. And we're also doing just discussion to make sure we're wrapping up our budget discussions here. So.
Do we have a start time for Monday?
Yeah, it'll be the, what is it, 5? What am I saying? No, 4:45. 4:45, not 5:45. 4:45, yes. Like we've done, well, we've been doing in the past. It's the same time.
Okay. Thank you. If there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? Thank you, Ms. Pillsbury and Mr. Freeman. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.